Oh, very good.
Yeah, that's
Hey, welcome to Captive Audience. It's a wonderful Wednesday. Don and I have been, well, we were chatting just before coming on. I said, "Oh my gosh, we got to get going, man. We're late."
well. I
So,
got to show the audience my Lady Galadriel cup, right? I'm a fan of the Lord of the Rings, and always my favorite character.
all right, all right. Well, I'll tell you, we need some fighting going on, right? Although, no, we're seeing a lot of fighting going on. Let me
Yes,
rephrase that.
we are.
We need some fighting going on with the Republicans all coming together and pick a speaker.
Hmm. Yeah.
I'm disappointed. I'm disappointed that uh, a few, well, I was disappointed that a few went with the Democrats to get rid of the speaker we had. But then again, maybe we need to have a change. Um, but now this is I don't understand why they're not coming together. And there's always more behind the scenes and more to the story as to why. I read something that Lori Chavez DeRemer said, "Oh no, Jim Jordan is not the guy to unite us." Well, I disagree. I think he could be very, very uniting, not just for the Republican caucus of Congress, but for America, actually. He's a real common sense guy, and I like how he speaks, and I also like what he's been doing in investigations.
Yeah, and I'll be honest, I've not followed it closely enough to really give valuable insight here, but I will say this just in general. Republicans have been filled with too many moderates, too many softies, I'll call it, too many people willing to bend on principles to make Democrats happy. And where we need to go, we've been pushed to the brink. I think we need people who are willing to stand on principle, willing to not willing to not be liked. And until we do that, we're not going to win anything. And so one thing the
Well,
Democrats do for sure is they stand together no matter what. And we've not done that.
well, yes, but okay, so it's that it's not black and white in politics. And so I see what Lori's comment is, okay,
Mhm.
that Lori Chavez de Remer is proving herself to be a rhino, but she's in a purple district. So we're happy that we've got a Republican in her district in Congress. This hasn't happened for a long time, 30 years or more. In fact, Greg Walden never had a Republican congressman while he was in office.
Mhm.
So for me, I'm happy that we have one there. If she were to get primaried, we'll probably lose that seat, is my thinking, because people will go towards a Democrat. And I guess she's got two or three Democrats running against her. And then, so I wish that she would come around and vote for Jim Jordan. Yes, I want her to do that. And I think the Republicans in Oregon want her to do that. But she's getting pressured, I'm assuming, from the Democrats in her district and the liberals in that. And I hear you. Is she choosing the correct battle? I don't know. I want her to join the forces. And and I've spoken with Cliff Bentz about this, and we've been I won't say spoken, we've been in communication about this. And because most importantly, we've got to unite and not give fodder to the Democrats. And right now, we're giving them fodder. So she didn't vote for him in the second round. And I thought she would. I understand the first round. And I hope Jim Jordan doesn't give up the fight. I think he would be an excellent speaker. But as I said, as we started here, you just don't know what all is going on behind the scenes. And there's more to the story. So we're going to have to see about that. I did not like seeing the protest in the rotunda today at all.
Yeah, that's pretty crazy, isn't it?
Yeah, it was. And I'll tell you, they said they were themselves Jewish, and yet pro-Palestinian. And so they were arrested in there. It looked like a takeover, and they were quite loud. And I will tell you, if you were um, pro-choice, they would not allow you to have that in that demonstration. I do not believe in the rotunda at all, but they let them in there.
Hmm.
So I think then the arrest is just going to be trespassing, and it's, see, we arrested them and we got them out. Well, I
Yeah.
watched enough of it to just get my blood pressure up. And
I'm not sure what their end game was with that. I mean, obviously, um, they didn't get a permit to protest there, and as a result, and plus, that's got to be one of the most guarded places, or should be, in the country. For them to be able to march in and just have a protest, um, obviously, they wanted it to happen.
right,
As a matter
and
of fact,
Congress was in session. They're
yeah,
in the floor voting and
mhm,
whatnot today.
right.
That should
Yeah.
have never happened.
So yeah, so clearly they were okay with that. Um, Logic would tell you that.
Yeah, it is. And I'm just not at all happy with them being there, and it just shouldn't have happened. But wait a minute now, it's oh, are we being not for the, freedom of speech, Don, by saying that? No.
Yeah, well, they got a legal permit to go in there and protest, then fine, protest away, or stand outside like everybody else does. Um, but to be able to go inside and just have an illegal protest, I, you
Right.
know, um,
Right.
yeah,
So there was Jewish Voice for Peace
hmm,
organized the demonstration, and Jews demand ceasefire.
oh,
You
that's
know,
why they were allowed in. Now that we know who was doing the protesting,
there
that's
you go. So that's who
why
did it.
they were in. Yeah,
And so hundreds of protesters could be seen with signs saying Jews demand ceasefire, and Philly Jews say never again is now, and says never again. So I don't. Eh, I don't agree with it. I don't, because there was a lot of people in there, and it was should not have been allowed for the security of our lawmakers in session. And so were these people, was this a left's insurrection?
well, you'll never get that from the media.
No, no, you won't. No, you won't.
You'll never get that.
No, and in fact, something that a story that you've got here is about Harvard is losing donors.
Mhm. Yeah, so a number of donors of the billionaire variety have gotten so appalled, and these, generally speaking, I think, kind of lean to the left, but being supportive of the slaughter of innocent women and children was apparently a bridge too far, and to have Harvard students basically signed documents saying that pretty much they're okay with that was a bridge too far. So now they're pulling the bucks. So it's very interesting to watch them backpedal and Harvard itself never made a statement condemning all of this until they started losing the support of these billionaires, which goes to show you the lack of morality that these people have. And then there were demands from these companies for the students who signed that to make their names public. Now, this is a funny thing to me about these virtue signalers. They love virtue signaling as long as there's no cost to them. You'll notice that they didn't come and say publicly say, "This is who I am." They all started backpedaling and revising their statements. It's absolutely hilarious. I mean, the lack of courage on their part. It's all about just making a bunch of noise, but they don't want to do it at personal cost to themselves. So these people ought not run around comparing themselves to the people at the 1968 Olympics, for example, who did the Black Power salute. Those
Right.
people, or Muhammad Ali, those people took serious risks and stood up for something that they were willing to pay the price for. These people are completely about feel good moments, and that's it. They don't want to pay the price for anything.
Yes, that you're absolutely right. They don't. But was a story that I ran across that I just posted on there was a New York City law firm has rescinds job offers to Columbia and Harvard students over Israel letters. And I'm glad. there has to be some common sense here and pushback against this, wanting to support seeing people slaughtered. I was having a discussion with somebody today about this. Did Israel ask for this?
Mhm.
They didn't. Did they provoke this? If they did, I haven't seen any evidence of that.
Well, these pro-Palestinian types will argue yes, no matter what. And
Okay.
it's just a level of evil where these people are. But to the point earlier about these business people refusing to hire these people, it's a great business decision too. Would you want to hire somebody who's that immoral? And there's no telling what they would do with your business, that type of person. I mean, someone who would be supportive of this, you don't want to be in the same neighborhood as them. You don't want to be anywhere near people who lack um, that ability to have empathy and common sense and good morality. You don't want them around you. Um, so it's a great decision.
Well, it is, and this law firm says that these statements are simply contrary to our firm's values, and we thus concluded that rescinding these offers was appropriate in upholding our responsibility to provide a safe and inclusive work environment for all
Mhm.
employees.
Sure.
And you
Okay.
know what? And that's what it's about. So good luck to those. I'm happy that they didn't get hired by the law firm.
Mhm.
Let them go find a job somewhere else.
Well,
Good luck with that.
bring that toxicity into your workplace. I mean, something is wrong with you
Yeah.
if you're supporting that. I mean, there really is.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So well, let's see. What else have you got there? Well, what else is going on is, Biden is over there today. Did you see any of that? His statement, and he's supposed to address the nation tonight. I don't know if he
I,
is right now.
I try to avoid him whenever possible. It's too painful.
Don, I'll tell you, it was really painful. I was watching him, and he's sitting in a chair across from Netanyahu, and he's got his little cheat sheet card, which he flashes to the camera that shows his talking points. It shows his statements. And he casually glances down, looks like he's about to fall asleep as he barely is audible reading another statement. It's like, oh my
Well,
God.
here's the silver lining, though, Sonny. At least we know it's not a body double.
Well, you're right, because
That's really him.
another of our episodes, I said, how can he be one day
Mhm,
barely able to complete a whole dang sentence
mhm.
and then give a speech where he sounds very coherent? And I'm going, this is like he's a body double.
Yeah, yeah. No, I think people who have advanced, what do you call that? When they're not Alzheimer's, but when they reach the end stages of that, they have good days and bad days. I mean, that's or better days.
Dementia.
Dementia, right? So that's him. The person I feel sorry for is Netanyahu. You're having to sit here
Oh
and
my.
pretend like you're talking to somebody who's actually there. Um, you're having a high level conversation with someone who belongs in a nursing home. Um,
Right.
it's
And this is such a
uh,
dangerous time
mhm,
in our world right now. It
mhm.
is such a dangerous time in our world, and we have the most inept person as the leader of our nation, and it is damn scary.
And quite frankly, the worst administration ever.
Yeah, yeah,
You know,
absolutely. It's
we
not
would,
just the president; it's the whole lot.
yeah. I mean, arguably, I think it's more than arguably, we would not be in this position at all if this administration wasn't there. I mean, the we talked about this a year or two ago when the whole Afghanistan thing blew up. Where are those weapons going to wind up? Well, now you know, right? And
Yeah,
what's the signal you're sending to that part of the world? That part of the world respects one thing and one thing only, and that's power. And I shouldn't say just that part of the world is true at all times, everywhere in human history, but it's extra true in that part of the world. The only thing they respect is power. And if they sense weakness, the game is up. And that's precisely what they see. Who would respect or want the United States as a teammate right now? Um, you know, so our
nobody.
allies our allies are really up the creek if you think about it. And if you're after Afghanistan, if you're Japan, think of the world's hotspots: Japan, South Korea, right? Um,
Taiwan.
Taiwan, Israel. these countries sit at like the apex. If you had to argue where World War III would start, probably one of those places. Probably one of those places. And it's been a long time since there's been a major blowup. It's been 50 years since this happened in Israel, for example. The DMZ, no one's talking about it, but it's awfully quiet, at least in the national news. But there's always incursions that happen there. Um,
Yes.
you know, so in Taiwan, they've been saber rattling about that for 50 years. I don't think that one's going to be the spot just because China's a lot weaker than people think. But that Middle East thing, hey, 6,000 years of history.
It is a lot of history, and that's actually what the person that I was talking to today said. This has been going on for thousands of years. Yes, it has, and I think it all started because they were so close to a peace accord.
Hmm.
So this was to throw it into turmoil. So there
Hmm.
will be no peace accord, and it's really a shame because this
Hmm.
is going to have, I think, far-reaching implications throughout the world.
Yeah.
When the nations, Iran's, threatening shutting off all the oil,
Hmm.
and crippling nations for what's going on. They're being accused of being in this. Do I think they are? Sure.
Hmm.
Sure, I do.
Hmm.
Iran is not an innocent bystander in any of this, in my
Oh, no
opinion.
question about it. And the thing is, think about that again. I'm not super knowledgeable on the whole Gaza situation, but it would seem to me, just looking back at things from a historical perspective, clearly, well, I shouldn't say clearly, they're trying to bait Israel into doing something spectacularly aggressive. And this may be the time, as hard as it is to say it, for them to not do that. I mean, to lock down their defenses, not attack Gaza, lock their defenses down so that this doesn't happen again. Um, I, you know,
I did see a headline today that said Israel is rethinking the invasion in Gaza.
yeah,
And
yeah.
I've seen, I have no idea, but I've seen that this could very well be a trap for them going in there, because Hamas, Iran, they all want them to be able to paint Israel as the bad guy, the foe here.
Mhm,
And as soon, just like this, all the about the lie of the hospital being bombed. What
mhm,
I heard today I was listening to Mark Levin's show as I was driving in my car, and he said this story that the mainstream media is saying is an absolute lie. It was a bomb did go hit into the parking lot. 500 people didn't die,
mhm.
and but the mainstream media picked it up and ran with it, and then they've been doing backtracking because
Oh,
they
yeah.
want to make Israel be the looking like they're the bad guy here.
Well, Israel went and did the research, and the rocket came from Hamas. So it wasn't even an Israeli rocket that did it. That's why you see all the backtracking.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, I suspect if you think back to again, I'd love to go back to World War I as an example. If cooler heads had just prevailed, and maybe that's the situation here. You know, uh, it's tough to watch that many of your people get slaughtered without. Let's put it this way: without an immediate, maybe that response is done differently. So, for example, you go back to the '72 Olympics when they murdered the entire Israeli wrestling team. I'm sure most of us here remember that event.
Mhm.
Well, Israel didn't go with a nuclear attack or something at that point in time, which they could have done. They just slowly, one by one, quietly. I think it was Golda Meir, who was one of my heroes, by the way. She put an order out, and they just picked those guys off one at a time. Over like a 20-year period.
Mhm.
Just quietly took care of it. And something like that is probably the way you handle this.
Well, it could be. And I think they have removed three of the top leaders of Hamas
Mhm.
already in their retaliatory attack. That's my understanding. And absolutely, there's war is in many, or things can be done in a different fashion that
Right.
actually saves more innocent people.
Right.
You know,
Then you're not allowing them to paint you as the bad guy. It's a lose lose if you approach it in the traditional way.
yeah.
Um, And so maybe that's a better approach. It's hard to explain to people when they're outraged, and they rightfully should be outraged. I mean, can you imagine losing friends, family, and something like that?
Yeah.
You'd want to see an immediate response.
Yeah.
But there are some responses that are classified top secret. You don't get to know about them. But the families of those, my understanding is the families of the wrestling team were all approached one on one. We'll take care of it. And they did.
Right. So, maybe it would be nice if cooler heads prevailed. They did a smackdown, right? Now go, okay, maybe we should do something strategic and just being on the alert. And but then I said, as I just said, being on the alert, it flashed through my mind when Israel said they were surprised at this attack.
Hmm.
I still very much wonder about that. They have such great intelligence,
Hmm.
and then so much so they have released a tape,
Hmm.
of the recording of Hamas going, "Oh yeah, we just hit that hospital or whatever,"
Hmm.
and yet, so they have that intelligence. They don't want to play their hand, and that was something that Mark Levin talked about today,
Hmm.
a little bit. So, I don't know. I like listening to Mark Levin. I don't get to all the time. I just was in my car today and had that opportunity.
Hmm. Yeah, you just never know when it comes to things defense. It can be pretty complicated. Now, here's another example, a World War II example. When the British, I think, and the Americans also, when we got I think it was Enigma, when we figured out the top secret code that the Germans were able to communicate on, you couldn't let them know that you had it. So to
Right.
go out and sink a bunch of ships at the same time would signal that to them that they had it. So knowing that, we allowed a number of civilian ships to get sunk, and military troops as well, because to let them know too much at one time, those are the kinds of decisions you have to make in war. So
War's not pretty, man.
no,
And
it's an
and
ugly
and
business.
we have a generation, a few that have never seen it and have not experienced it here in America, and we have plenty that have. But how soon, I feel like the Americans' memory is short because it's not being taught in school.
No, not only is it not being taught in school, but we're increasingly being reaching a point where we have generations that have never even served or had relatives that served.
Yeah.
You think about when we were kids, we all had uncles, dads, moms. When everybody served in some capacity, whether it be World War II, Korea, Vietnam. There
Mhm.
was lots of people, drafts, the whole 9 yards. But if you were born after 1980, you haven't experienced that. So now we have people who don't have any relatives who've ever served, don't even know anybody who served, and we're able to do so much with technology that we don't have to have a million man army, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
So people can live their life here until now anyway, without any knowledge, any firsthand knowledge of that stuff.
Yeah. And so, like Lori says, Israel has a mandatory service requirement, and I believe that they do
Yeah,
for every
do.
man and or woman.
But they have to. They don't have two oceans.
Right. Right. And actually, I have often thought that we should have that in our country. Just everybody, if everybody served a couple years, it would quite frankly change our nation,
I
which
used to
I
think
think
that
would be for the
until
better.
until they changed the leadership of the military.
Well, they've been working on that. Look at some of them, and guys pretending to be women. Oh my word!
Up until a couple of years
Don't
ago,
get me started there, Don.
I was fully on board with that until a couple of years ago. Now I'm like, I don't want anybody to work for the government in any capacity.
Oh God.
I'm
Yeah,
thoroughly
our woke
spooked by this.
military, and that is scary.
Oh, it
Our
is. I mean,
It's very scary for
it's
our
one of the
nation
scary
right now.
things. Only the most erudite conservatives are talking about that. They've essentially what they've done with the whole COVID thing, and I think that was part of the strategy, was they removed conservatives or patriots, maybe another word you want to put it, from the military, or not. They obviously they didn't get all of them, but they
Nope.
certainly used it to remove the leadership class that were truly pro-constitution, let's put it, and replace them. All you can do is look at pictures of them. They don't even have to open their mouth, and you can tell. Um,
Yeah.
so,
Yeah.
so now they've stacked it with people who are leftists, and the kinds of people who would go into the military now. You know, young men are not going to go into a military the way it is now, and the recruiting is like way down, and they
It
keep
is way down.
yep, and they keep pretending like it's because of the amount of pay and competing in the private sector. That has nothing to do with it.
Mm-mm.
Warriors don't want to work for somebody who can't determine whether they're a he or a she. That's the short and plain and simple of it.
Yes, and when you have a very weak leader in our nation, then you're not so inclined to want to serve. Now, when 9/11 happened,
Hmm.
people, the recruitment was off the charts.
Hmm.
The recruitment was off the
Right.
charts. The people signing up
Hmm.
to go, you know what, I have to go do something here. And so, but we all have to be vigilant, I think, around us in our lives because of so many coming across the border and not thinking, oh, somebody, I can dial 911 and somebody's coming. Because let me tell you, you dial 911, they're all dealing with fentanyl
Well,
and
yeah.
ODs. They're not coming. And
Oh,
if
yeah,
they do, they might not even get arrested.
they're tied up. I mean, they got bigger fish to fry than you. Unless there's an active murder in progress, you're on your own. In fact, that's a great segue. Just to tell you this a little bit. I was telling you earlier about this article in Portland last weekend. What was it? They had a huge bus, 150 agents involved in Portland. What was that? I scribbled this down. It was I don't know, it was like 9 kilos of cocaine, $50,000 in cash, um, 25 firearms, literally thousands of fentanyl pills. I'm not sure what the street value is of that, but you can bet your
Wow.
bottom dollar it's a lot. And just another day in Portland. So, so they're busy. And I think this all ties to what you were saying about the border, though, too. We
Yeah.
got hundreds of thousands of young military-aged men crossing the border. Not nearly enough women, not nearly as many children as you would think. Makes you wonder, what are they here for? Um, and I think that's something that's worth worrying about. Um,
Well, it is. I heard about. I saw a little ticker tape as I was preparing dinner. I haven't eaten dinner, but I prepared dinner tonight, and it said that somebody, a mayor of some town, is going. We've got to rethink this, keeping our. Oh, I know. I saw a headline on one of the looking for some stories tonight. She had said, they have the right to camp, right, or right to rest for
mhm,
the homeless, going, we've got to rethink this right to rest with all these immigrants coming into town.
mhm.
And this is where it's in a sanctuary city. So they're wanting to change things around and a bit. Now, in fact, today, a Republican, a New York Republican representative, Nick Langworthy, introduced legislation to redirect funding from housing illegal immigrants to bringing Americans home from Israel. This is a story out of the Daily Caller.
Mhm,
And they first obtained a copy of the legislation entitled the Safe Way Home Act.
mhm.
And not safe way like shopping, right? The Safe Way Home Act. The bill would specifically eliminate crisis loan program and require the State Department to make sure Americans have the resources they need to get out of war zones. It would also transfer funds away from DHS Shelter and Service Program, and that program uses taxpayer dollars to provide housing for people who are in America illegally.
You know,
So let's
yeah.
hope this goes somewhere.
You have to figure they must be pretty confident. I'm just thinking this through, and I could be wrong. But those districts where they're housing all these illegal immigrants in these hotels, those
Mhm.
are staunchly Democrat districts where they're going to win they figure they're going to win that no matter what. I don't know how true that'll be given how angry people are becoming, but that's where they're doing that. So they're confident enough that they can put these people in their districts and ruin uh, jobs, crime, and drive crime up, all of that stuff. That's where they're putting them, which makes you wonder, what is going to be the source of next October's surprise? We know there's going to be not just one October surprise, a whole bunch of October surprises.
Yeah.
We've already seen them turn on the Antifa mob and the Black Lives Matter mob on us in the last election, and the Vax mob. Um, it's just an interesting thing to theorize about.
Well, it is. And, so we're going to have to see. We're going to live it, Don, and find out as
Yeah, it
this
doesn't
goes.
appear to be any way out of it. That's for sure. Uh, yeah,
Well, and Bobby says when they start kicking elderly and veterans out of their homes and assisted living rooms for illegals, there's an issue. Well, they were doing that in New York City.
well,
And
but again, that city is voted blue pretty much no matter what. How bad does it have to get? They're doing that where they have no fear that they're going to get kicked out of office.
right.
Now, there is a positive underlying that, though, as terrible as this sounds. That means that they still think, to some degree, that elections still matter. In other words, they're not 100% confident they can cheat this thing again. So there's a
With
positive.
Well, that is a positive. That is a positive. We have another something to think about, because you're going, what else? What else are they going to come up with? Well, this is a little bit of a segue into our energy, which we talk about often here on
Great
Captive
segue.
Audience.
Yeah.
Ohio, Indiana, and West Virginia have asked the Supreme Court to stop the feds from overruling state air quality policies, because they're asking them to block the EPA's plan that may cause blackouts.
Mm-hmm.
So you have a bureaucratic agency that's saying you've got to, cut your air quality. Your air quality has to get better, which in turn is going to break or shut down coal plants, even liquefied natural gas, LPG, LNG plants. And so at the expense of, we're going to have blackouts, not just in Oregon. You know what? Governor Brown said a few years ago, look out, be prepared for emergencies. We're going to have blackouts.
Yeah.
Well, that was Oregon, and they've already, we've shut down a coal power plant, didn't build the natural gas plant that was supposed to replace the power we lost.
Mm-hmm.
And they just want to shut down clean energy we've got all the scrubbers, and we have ways of having clean energy that's reliable energy. Quite frankly, we need liquefied natural gas energy plants, among others. So I'm glad to see these three states asking the Supreme Court to block this. That this is at the detriment of our nation, which we need to have secure energy. That's a national security issue, quite frankly.
And probably even a bigger issue is, if this goes the direction it should go, is to prevent unelected officials from being able to do this sort of thing. The DEA
Yes.
has no business having the ability to do that in the first place. If you want to get that done, do it through Congress, so people can know who did it to them, and then they can kick them out of office. This is one of the reasons why these Congress people hide behind these bureaucratic outfits to do their bidding, so that way they can pretend like they don't like it and this and that. And they get their little payola on the side, and meanwhile, the outfits that are doing this, they're unelected. They can get away with it. So this would be
Yeah.
an awesome turn of events, because this would prevent them from doing this across a lot of different fronts, because the DEA isn't the only outfit doing this to the American people.
You're exactly right. There is a lot more than just the EPA. So this is a good thing. Let's keep an eye on it and see what happens as it works its way. If it gets picked up by the Supreme Court, quite frankly.
Because one of the good things is we do have a pro-constitutional Supreme Court. So
Yeah.
we are very fortunate there.
Yes, we are in that. Some good news. Oklahoma, their ban on sex changes for minors has been upheld by a federal district court. The judge has rules that the state law banning procedures for therapies for children under 18 doesn't violate violate parents' constitutional rights, and so it's been upheld that the ban on sex changes. So this is a good thing.
That's a very good thing, and hopefully more states follow suit.
Yep. Yeah, it's yeah, I hope so. I'll tell you, we've got to protect children, quite frankly. Oregon, no, unfortunately. Come
Mhm.
on over. We'll mutilate your children over here and we'll pay for it too. I mean, can't
There's
make this
something.
stuff up. But
No, you can't.
Oklahoma, this is a good thing.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And if they're, that's one of the reasons why the founders are so brilliant with the whole thing with different states. If one state's doing something crazy, you can always go there. And there's other states that are doing things successful. And people do migrate for those very reasons. So one of the reasons why California and Oregon are losing population.
Yes. And no, I don't have anything on 114 yet. I think I don't have any update on that, but we have another good news story. There's Central and South America is really going communist. Well, Ecuador just had an election 3 days ago, and they have elected a conservative. He's the youngest president, will be the youngest president Ecuador's ever had, Daniel Noboa. And he's 35 years old. He is a successful businessman from banana fortune. That's what he's bananas for Ecuador, right? But and as Don and I were talking early before our program, he reminded me that the next conservative fellow that had been running for president, he was assassinated. And here you had normally a presidential term is 4 years, but this was an early election triggered by the dissolution of parliament by the outgoing president, Guillermo Lasso. And they really have fought. In fact, they have fought to reject communism in Ecuador. And I'm really proud of them. I lived in Ecuador for a year. It's a wonderful country. The people are really nice, as most people are. It's the governments that's the problems typically. But so
maybe they got the news about Venezuela.
you know what? They've seen that. And, Peru's having a battle right now. And I would hope that they would prevail. We'll have to wait and see. And so it's good. I hope this guy does really well.
Mm-hmm.
And
I'll tell you.
Pray for Ecuador, and they're turning away from communism and socialism. One thing I have to say about Ecuadorians, when they're not happy, they protest, and they protest hard. Mm-hmm. And they have shut down and changed, gotten people out of office and said, no, this is what we reject. And so I'm really happy with this outcome of the election, and just pray for Ecuador.
Good on them. No, that is communism and socialism are like they're like free sex. They all sound great on the surface, but down the road you start paying the price for it. And we have the last century, how many hundreds of millions of people killed because of it. But if we keep people uneducated and dumb about it, then they'll keep thinking it's a good thing.
Yeah. I'm reading a little into this story. Mr. Noboa has said he would give back a smile and peace to the country. The murder rate in Ecuador quadrupled between 2018 and 2022.
Wow.
And quadrupled. And wow. I'll tell you, Ecuador is a place that my husband and I We lived in 3 different cities in Ecuador and just over a year. We rode our bicycles all over the place. We would jump on a bus and go tour around, and never had a thought of crime.
Mhm.
Colombia at that same time, before a little bit, few years before, you could never do that
Oh, right,
because
right.
of getting kidnapped and whatnot. I rode my bicycle around a little bit uh,
Mhm.
in in uh, in Colombia, but only around some certain parts of town, you know.
Right. Yeah.
But um, but yet it was. But Ecuador, I never had any feeling that anything would happen. The people were just
Mhm.
so kind and um, giving, and invite you into their homes. Oh yeah, come on and let's
Yeah.
have dinner. Have dinner with us.
Mhm.
You know, they were happy to see foreigners traveling in their country and share their country with you.
Yeah. Boy, once you inject the bacteria called socialism into something, all of that changes. Um, it's all about envy and who's got what.
Yeah, absolutely. But because he's a successful businessman, you know, that's a good thing. He understands then, you know, I'm going to say he probably understands things of how to maybe turn his country around. Now, I will tell you, he's actually a graduate of Harvard Kennedy School. And so he will see. He's
Mhm.
young. He's the heir to the banana magnate Alvaro Noboa.
Mhm.
And he had been on their legislation until the parliament was in parliament until it was all dissolved.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
So I
Good news.
hope he is who he represents himself to be as the conservative.
Yeah. Well, he already is at the big C for courage. After your predecessor got assassinated and you step into the breach, hey, you know, you know,
Absolutely.
so
Absolutely.
you know,
So we have to have courage in our country in
mhm,
speaking out against what's wrong
mhm.
and speaking
Because yeah,
up for what's right.
because good news abounds. I mean, you have to be patient for it. For example, there was the news that Moderna's stock is down like 60%, which tells you people are totally rejected getting the jab, which is a great thing. Pfizer recently admitted that the jab was caused cardiovascular excessive risk in young people. That is absolutely amazing, and I can't figure out why they admitted it now. Of course, they still can't be sued, but the fact that they've said it is pretty amazing. Pretty amazing.
What it is, and also that what's the NPV or what's the other one? I can't pull it out. I said it earlier, but I can't pull
Yeah,
it
you
out.
did, and I can't think of it either. But
It's the
it's another
one. It's the vaccine that they've been saying all the kids have to get it,
right, right.
and you know, because they're sexually active, and this
Mhm.
might prevent cancer, and that is it, might
Yeah,
prevent
Mike.
cancer. It's not going to, it might. And that particular one, HPV vax,
HPV. That's
that's
it.
it.
Thank you.
Ah, Lori posted it right as I was
There
saying.
you go.
And so the HPV one, now they're saying, nope, put the brakes on that.
Mhm,
You don't want to. Studies have come out now that that's something that you don't want to use.
mhm.
And I'm not an anti-vax person, but because of what's gone on with COVID and shot and the lies, in my opinion, um, and the hard, heavy hand of government and businesses going, you must do this. I just immediately went, no way. We've never done this in our country. Ever, 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 ever.
Yeah,
So
it's your body, your choice, right?
that is your body, your choice.
Yeah,
And,
I
you
mean,
know,
it's all about being able to make an informed decision. You
yeah,
present the data about your product, and the other thing is you don't put yourself in a position where you can't be sued. You know, the
yeah.
minute you do that, the minute I know that's a product I ought not touch.
Exactly.
So
Exactly. I've been going, why do they have to have immunity if this is so good and this is so right?
yeah,
No, no,
nobody else
no.
has immunity.
No. No, no,
You
no.
can't be selling
Well,
something and
I
see
have
who's
heard,
immune.
I don't know if it's true, Don, but I have heard that businesses that forced people to have a shot and then they had adverse reactions, that they could be liable. But
And yeah, and they
I
should
don't
be.
know.
If you put somebody's job at risk, you
Yeah,
put their livelihood at risk, to force them, let the government do that. If the government wants to do that, that's their business. But if you're going to be the enforcement arm for the government, hey, nobody gave you an immunity waiver. You
yeah,
ought to be sued. And I'll tell you another thing: these people who took that shot because they had to keep their job, and then they wind up getting sick, they ought to sue the daylights out of those companies. And I
100%.
believe that will come to pass.
Yeah, 100%. And yeah, like then you have the government, like Kate Brown mandated all state employees. And my heart goes out. We have to have compassion for those that, took a shot to keep their job and whatnot and fought and got fined and all. I feel for that. But the truth is coming out. The truth will prevail. And it is coming out about the problems, what's the ingredients that are in this, and the problems that it is causing. And I'm just so glad that more truth is
You
coming
can
out.
only hide that for so long. I mean,
Yeah.
for one thing, you see so many celebrities and athletes just all the time across the age spectrum. I mean, you could argue somebody's 75 or 80 years old. Okay, age, yeah, right, right, right. But when you see them in their 20s, 30s, and 40s, I don't know. And even the ones that are older, and they suddenly get some like turbo cancer and they're gone in like weeks.
Or
Um,
they suddenly keel over dead.
right,
Perfectly good, healthy athletes, and
right.
yeah, and yet there's still a portion of the media that is trying to portray this that, oh, this has always gone on.
Oh, sure.
BS.
Or there's like no questioning whatsoever. I mean, 5 or 6 years ago, before all of this vaccine business, if a 30-year-old dropped dead, there'd be all kinds of investigative reporting around what
Yeah,
happened. They'd be speculating.
yeah,
Oh, did they? I remember when Walter Payton got sick. You might remember
yeah.
that. And the whole speculation was he was doing drugs or something, right? Well, it turned out he had a really rare, I think it was a kidney disorder, right? But there was all this speculation that went on. And that's always the way it's been until now. Now there's no speculation about anything.
Only by people like you and me and our audience.
Right, yeah. They just bury it. Just bury it. So, yeah, it's
Yeah,
completely normal for, for college athletes, like, to drop dead in the prime of their life, you know?
yeah.
That just happens normally. Right.
No, 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 no. And, and I'm sorry, like Lori Good says, what about the health issues from the stress of fighting to get
Mhm,
the jab?
mhm.
There's so many repercussions from all of this
Sure.
that
Yeah.
so many people felt. And a lot of stress on all sides everywhere
Mhm,
during all of this. And now we have different stresses.
mhm.
So, with that, I'm going to tell you, don't forget to have some fun. Take care of yourself.
Yeah.
Go for a bike ride, go for a walk. Um,
And don't forget to turn off the TV. Really, I know you're listening to this broadcast now, but when you think about it, you don't want to listen to too much of this stuff, right? It'll make you nuts. I
it
remember when all
will.
the COVID stuff was going on, I shut off the TV, the radio, I shut all that stuff off. And now reading's a different thing, by the way. It seems like reading doesn't drive the same stress levels as electronic data does. So by all means read, but in terms of getting too immersed in this, go outside and look around you. 99% of us live in an environment that's great. The media would have you think that everything's like the streets of Detroit, and it's simply not true. Most Americans are crazy. People are super pleasant where I am. People say hello. They open the doors for each other. I was in line at the store the other day, and this guy I never met before in my life. I was very polite to him because he was having trouble at the register in front of me, and he was really worried I was in a hurry. And so it took longer. And I told him, "Hey, it's no problem to worry about. I got all the time in the world." And the guy was so happy that I did that for him. He paid for my stuff. I ain't met the guy in my life. But there's people, most Americans are like that.
Yeah. And a little kindness goes a long ways. Let me tell
No,
you, it
no,
does.
absolutely. And people come from all over the world. You talk to them, they say one of the things that strikes them the most is how kind the average American is. And it's true. You go to other countries and people don't stop at the crosswalks so somebody can get their dog across the street. That doesn't happen. But here, most of the time people do that stuff.
Yeah, that's
Sometimes we
true.
take for granted what a sensational place we live in. You
Yeah.
know, and it's the detritus of having grown up in a Judeo-Christian environment. Now we're wearing that out by doing less of it. It takes you a couple of generations to finally get rid of it, and then you wind up in an uncivilized Palestine type situation. But for the time being, we still have that, and we got to cherish it.
We do. We have to cherish it and cherish your loved ones and pray for our country, pray for our leaders. And
Even Biden. Oh,
yes, even Biden.
oh, that hurt to say it. I know we're supposed to, but I said
But you know what? It's true though, Don.
it is
Even
true.
Biden.
It is true.
We do need to pray for everybody, that there's peace in the world and that there could be a peaceful outcome and keeping America safe.
Pray for those that spite you.
Yes.
Whew, those are some
Yes.
tough words, but they're true.
Yep. It is true. That's a great note to end on. I wish everybody a great night. Don, it's wonderful being on with you tonight.
It's
Thank you so
always a
much.
hoot being on with you as well. And
Always.
everybody else out there, y'all take care and don't watch any more media tonight.
Okay. Good night.
Good night, everybody.